Those of us who have been studying together for the past 3 weeks in the book of John and the blind man, I've enjoyed that study, but I want to continue that, not that story, but even in the book of John, there's still this conversation happening between Jesus and the church leadership, and it's the continuation of this conversation. I want to first say, above everything else, that as a decorated veteran, Vietnam veteran, I am concerned about the country that I love. And it's disappointing to see how, after having endured so much as a nation, that we are still not on one accord. It's disappointing to watch us endeavor to call ourselves world leadership and world importance, and yet I'm not speaking politically, I'm not speaking about any group or anything, but as a nation, as a people, we are disappointing to ourselves. The animosity, the animus, the discourse, the direction, the anger, the frustration, it's just not what we are supposed to be if we want to claim the title of world leadership and world direction. We have now replaced flag waving with slogans and rhetoric and jargon and apologies, and the aisle, instead of becoming closer, is getting further and further apart. Worse than that, in my estimation, because I'm not a politician, nor am I desiring to be one, but I am a minister. And when we talk about leadership and going forward and leading the world, as a minister, my concept always has been, but the church leads that charge. We're the ones who have been given the command, the edict, to be the head and not the tail, to be the vanguards of our society and set the mark and create a standard, set the ethics, and be the morality, be the mental consciousness of America. And the church, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but it seems to me that the church has fallen into the exact same thing. I'm a decorated war veteran, but I'm a decorated Christian. I'm a God-serving man. I'm a man who is an anointed. And I am somewhat flummoxed with the reality that it seems like we have a band with no conductor. You have an army with no captain. And the church was supposed to be that captain. Instead, we have not united at all. If anything, it seems to me that we are just more divided than we ever have been, past all the wars, all the conflicts, all of the ventures in terms of peacekeeping missions. Yet here at home, we suffer amazing cognitive dissonance among each other. So since I'm not the political spokesman I'm almost spouting, I do want to spout ministerial components that are important. One of the texts that we oftentimes use in a type of braggadocious way is we call ourselves sheep. We have a shepherd and we follow the sheep, and he asks them to lead us and guide us and give us directions along the way. We sing it so proudly. I think about the us and they concept. I grew up in a home that was all about rules and God-fearing rules, and God likes this and God doesn't like that. I told you that before. Where we are right now is interesting to me because I look around and I'm trying to find the sheep and how we define them. There's an amazing parable, and Christ almost never talks about the judgment. Very rarely do you hear him give us a sermon about the judgment. When I grew up in my household, I thought if anything God was, he was judgment. That was the one key phrase. He's judgment, and you better get ready because the judgment is coming, and you don't want him to catch you sleeping. You want to be wide awake. You want to be aware because the judgment, all I ever heard was judgment. And I look at Christ's story in the Synoptic Gospels, and he hardly ever talks about judgment. Almost never. And the one time he does, it's a parable. I'm going to go to Matthew 25, where he makes the parable of the sheep and the goats. And you almost never hear that term because Christ never talked about that judgment process as sheep and goats, and it's a parable. It's a parable. It's not prophecy. It's a parable. In the parable, you understand that Christ says in Matthew 25 that the God of heaven takes his seat on the throne. He's going to judge. And he has these two categories of people. And you know it so well. He has the sheep and he has the goats. Sheep on one hand, goats on the other. Now, this may sound crazy, but I was always taught coming up that your goal was to be the sheep. And whatever you do, don't be a goat. But I looked at that parable in Matthew 25, and it's an interesting concept. What separates the sheep from the goat is not doctrine. What separates the sheep from the goats is not religion. It's not who's a Jew, who's a Gentile, who's a male, who's a female, who's an Asian, who's an African. Nothing separates the sheep and the goats but one thing. And it's one word: compassion. Sheep have compassion. Sheep care about people. That's why he got into the rhetoric about, I was sick and you didn't visit me. I was hungry and you didn't feed me, because it's about compassion. Sheep have compassion and goats do not. And that was the only qualifying factor in the judgment story of Matthew 25. Sheep care. They have compassion. They nurture. And in the parable, goats do not. So isn't it ironic that when Christ is having the conversation in John 10, and I want to read it because you know it almost by heart. In the 10th chapter of John, this is all part of the same conversation he's having with the leadership of the church, the Pharisees, and going their way. And right around the 14th verse, and you know it so well, I'm at John 10:14. I want to take a moment today to do this. John 10:14 says, Christ talking here, I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by them. Yours probably says of mine. Transliterate, I know my sheep, and they know me. Verse 15. As the Father knoweth me, even so now I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Now here's where I want to focus today. Verse 16. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Read it again. And there shall be one fold and one shepherd. I don't want to believe that the church has lost its direction, that we've become so bold with sheep and goats that we feel because every religion you will have out there, no matter who they are believing that they are the sheep. When the Bible makes this term, not of this fold, that's a very unique word, fold. You see it right there in the verse 16. He says, other sheep I have, not of this fold. Can I tell you something? The word fold is a Greek word called aule. It's a good term called aule. And when the term is used, and it's a very, very familiar term in Greek, in this historical Greek, aule does not mean people. It does not mean group. But as a matter of fact, an aule is an area where sheep gather. It's like if you have sheep and you have some wealth to you, you have 4 or 5 sheep. In Greek times, you have an outlay. It's where they're kept and it's where they're housed. It's their place. It's where they abide. It's where the group gathers. And when the group gathers, of course, they're all sheep. And because they are all sheep, they're pretty much treated the exact same way. They're cared for, they're nurtured, they're fed, they're washed, they're cleaned, they're clipped when the time of the season has come, because they're in that place together. So it's easy to believe that the value of the sheep is in that sheep place. Matter of fact, if you read probably the Amplified, maybe the Living Bible, it'll say sheep gate. They're in that sheep pen, because that's what the sheep pen is. That's the outlay fold, what it is. So Christ saying, I know you guys are in the synagogue. Watch this. You're in the synagogue here. And this synagogue is where you all gather. This is your gathering place. This is your outlay. This is where you come together and you share and you sing. Nothing wrong with that. But what Christ says to the church leadership in the 16th verse is this: other sheep I have that do not belong in this gathering, in this place. It's a place. It's a feminine noun. They don't belong in this place. But they're sheep. Now, you would say, if you were a hardcore religion person, anybody who's a sheep should be in the synagogue. Christ says no. Other sheep I have that are not in this place, not in this group, not in this gathering. And why is it critical that I say this to you now? Because we have so long in a denomination learned to separate ourselves from anybody not in our gathering. Because our viewpoint was, if you're not in our gathering, you cannot be sheep. You must be goats, therefore condemned. Jesus says, I have other sheep, and they're not gathering with you in this place. It's a noun. In this place. But if they are my sheep, now I got to stress this, they are probably gathering someplace else. Now wait. Pastor, are you saying that God has other places aside from this place? Answer, no, I'm not. Christ said it. Other sheep I have that don't gather where you gather. They're not part of this sheep group. They're not part of this fold. They're not part of this place. And so I have to make a decision, and here's my decision. Christ talking. Same verse. I can't send you. I need go to this other place of gathering, because when I go to the other place of gathering, they will hear my voice. And when they hear my voice, they'll know it's me. When they know it's me, they will follow me. They will follow me. So here's the question I would ask you, as a group, as a class, as a population of listeners. Why couldn't Christ send them? Why couldn't he say to his followers then, maybe even the disciples, I need you to go Asia Minor, I need you to go to Thessalonica, I need you to go to Corinth, and you go to Ephesus and just bring in the sheep? Why couldn't you just say, bring in all the sheep? Why must he go? And maybe you already know why he has to go. Because what message do they take when they go to, here's the term, win sheep to the Lord? What message do they take? Do they take their message, or do they take Christ's message? Do they take his voice? Now remember, if you take his message, here's his message. His message is this: you guys aren't the only fold. You aren't the only gathering place. You aren't the only enclosure of my people. So if you go there, can you tell the other people in Asia Minor, Thessalonica, Philippi, can you tell them that the God of the voice has said, come and be a part of the family of God. Without regard to, now understand something. You have to admit, there's a reason why, and it may be a good reason why, these other sheep that he has are not in this gathering place. Is it possible, and it's very possible, that they probably don't believe like the people in this gathering place? They don't have the same doctrine of the people in this gathering place, on this place, this sheepfold place, this gate. They don't have the same habits of the people in this gathering place. So if God must send someone, he must send someone who can accurately give the discourse of what his belief is. And his belief is this. Here's God's gospel. Come to me, all you that are weak and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That's the call he sends. But he cannot send a group that speaks synagogue, that speaks ritual, that speaks doctrine, but they don't speak sheep. They don't speak sheep. And what are sheep? We read it in Matthew. What are sheep? Compassion, caring, embracing, valuing. So he says, other sheep I have, not a part of your group, not a part of your gathering, but they're my sheep. Now, how do we know they're sheep? It's simple. In the exact same verse, he says, they know my voice. And if I love what it says, and you don't even have to make this up. Look at verse 16. Christ says, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold. So he is saying this. Christ is talking. When I go to the other gatherings, I'm taking the fold off the table, because when I say fold, you all think group. It's not a group. It's a gathering place, the fold, the sheepfold. So Christ says, when I go to these other places where I have sheep, and they are gathering someplace else on some other time frame, maybe some other day, maybe some other habit, maybe where they're gathering, I go. And when I go there, they will hear my voice. When they hear my voice, same verse, they shall become one. And I'm not going to teach. When's the last time you've heard his voice? When's the last time you heard his voice so clearly that you knew it had to be him? No, not through a medium, not through a doctrine, not through a prayer band. When's the last time you heard his voice and you knew it had to be him? Because what he says is when they hear my voice, they'll know it's me. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine back in the seminary, and his name was Abraham Tarian. He taught Jewish life and thought. Very, very bright guy. And he was from Israel. He sat there one day with us in the class and told us about the experience of a shepherd and his sheep in the field, because they still do the exact same thing today. He said, but oftentimes, because it's dry land, they would all gather in one watering hole. All the shepherds come together, all the sheep come together, and they begin to just mix and mingle. Just mix and mingle. There's a question. When's the last time that you mixed and mingled? When did you last mix and mingle comfortably, valuing somebody else more than yourself, valuing their viewpoint, valuing their belief system as much as yours? I didn't say more than, as much as yours. Valuing how they saw God as much as yours. Anyway, he said the sheep all gather together at the watering hole, and the shepherds get together because they know each other, and they talk. They have a conversation. They may eat lunch. They spend the day at the watering hole where the sheep are being fed. Then Dr. Tarian said that at the end of the day, the shepherds all get up. And each shepherd goes to a different spot around the watering hole. And when they do that, each of them take a turn and call for their sheep. And somehow the sheep, they unmingle themselves and they find their way to the shepherd. And when all those sheep who've been together forever and ever and ever in that day unmingle themselves, they find their way to the shepherd. And when they do that, the shepherd then just starts to walk and they follow him. And every shepherd around the water house that day, the water hole that day, do the exact same thing. They hear the voice of their shepherd. And when they hear that voice, they follow him because he's their shepherd. Christ says, and you began to hear verse 14, he says, I'm the good shepherd. I have the voice. I'm the one that they know. And if you are so brazen as to believe that your belief system makes you the sheep, then you're in trouble. Because the only qualifier in this whole passage of what makes sheep is that they know his voice. So much so that, look at the passage again one more time. I'm almost there. When they hear his voice, there shall be one fold gathering. There should be one gathering place. There should be one place where they all come together. There should be one place where they all congregate. Now, they're not coming there because of their belief system. No, they're not coming because of their diet, because they have a certain headdress on, or a certain kind of cross, or an etching, or wardrobe. The only single factor why they are there at this new fold, it's a new fold. See, the old fold, they weren't there. The new gathering place, they're there. It says when they come together in this new one great big fold, the only qualifying factor is this. They agree on the voice. On the voice. They all agreed that's the voice. Because they may never agree on wardrobe. They may never agree on diet. They may never agree on the day they worship on. They may never agree on the lifestyle at all. But they will agree that that's the voice of the shepherd I want to follow. And that's the difference between sheep and goats. And here's the reality. It's the exact same call God makes today. Now, of course, now when God leaves the planet, he leaves us an edict, doesn't he? Go ye therefore into all the earth and proclaim. But what do we proclaim? I would suggest this, the voice. What does the voice says? The voice says this: God is love, and loved you and died for you. Irrespective of religion, irrespective, there's the only qualifying factor in this new gathering that God has put together as one is the fact that they know his voice. One voice, one gathering place. You know, if you're reading the King James says fold, but if you're reading the Amplified, it may say flock. I'm not going to ever call the Bible incorrect, but let me expand that. That word ale means it's a feminine noun. It means a place. It's a location. It's a sheepfold. It's where they gather. So the flock, it may be a flock in King James Version, but it's a flock that gathers. And they gather at a place. And all I'm saying to you is be very, very careful on who you think God is talking to. The only reason why he cannot send the disciples is because they don't speak sheep. Do you speak sheep? Do you show up at a place and your presence and your demeanor and your discourse lets them know that this person has been with Jesus? Does somebody know what place you're in because your kindness comes out? Your compassion comes out. How about this? How about your non-judgmental nature comes out? Are you comfortable meeting people on their level, or must they always only meet on yours? Are you comfortable finding people and sharing different ideologies, and you walk away with a different view of God, but he's still your brother and he's still a sheep? Because the only qualifier here is the voice. They know his voice. So he says, I have other sheep that are not of this group gathering. They're not in this place. They're not where you are in your place. And I have to go get them. I can't risk someone going there speaking something that is not me. I have to go myself, because when I go there and my voice has in it, now watch this. The conversation Christ has will not change. He will say the exact same thing to the Jew, to the Gentile, to the Roman, to the Anglian, to the male, to the female, to the African, to the Ethiopian, to the Jewish. Exact same message, because the message is the same. The message has never changed. Matter of fact, the truth of the matter is, they never killed Christ over the gospel. Never did. They killed Christ over his application of the gospel, who he allowed to have it, who he called to himself aside, because the gospel has never changed. Your gospel of love, if you say you have, is not supposed to change. The church of God is supposed to lead this nation to show what unity is, what compassion is, what kindness is, what mercy is, what graciousness is. We're supposed to lead in that. How are we, after all this time, still arguing over who or who is not his sheep? Two things wrong with that. You do not have the intelligence, and you don't have the insight. Matter of fact, I would go one step further before I close this sermon. Are you sure you a sheep? I'm not criticizing. I'm not even condemning, but you've been heard this so long. Are you sure you're a sheep? Let me challenge you. Speak sheep to me. Just talk to me. And now let me set up the scenery before you speak sheep. I'm not going to look like you. I'm not going to dress like you. I'm not going to pray like you. I'm not going to sing like you. I'm not going to eat like you. I'm not going to go where you go. But I want you to speak sheep. And that's why Christ says, I need, matter of fact, this is interesting. You read it one more time. I'm going to just read it to you. Other sheep I have in this fold, which are not of this flock, I must bring. I must do that. And they should hear my voice. Because I just pray at the time of this nation's discomfort and our disconnection with each other, with all the separations we created. We have created more separation in our country. And we divide ourselves on so many lines. The church is supposed to be the vanguard. We're supposed to be the example. And I know you can't do it for the world, but can you do it for you and your 5 friends? Can you do it for the neighborhood that you're in? Can you do it for your small town or city? Can you be the group that says, here's what unity looks like? And all we want you to know is that if you hear his voice, you're welcome. Are they welcome? Are they welcome? Or do we still differentiate because we have our own little gathering place? And they have their gathering place. I just hope we're at a point in our walk with God that we get beyond this. I'm not speaking to the nation. That's not my charge. But to people who say they love God and want to be called to his ministry, you got to speak sheep. Because the compassion is what wins people. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would hear him would be his sheep. I just pray that that's your passion now, because we are in dire need of compassion. We are in dire need to put away the differences, to not make our sheep pen better than your sheep pen. We're in dire need of compassion. And all Christ needs is somebody who will just speak sheep. I pray that's you. Lord, keep us in this travail of time. Keep us as we go forward. Even though we might be the only person crazy enough to cross boundaries to meet other people, Lord, give us the ethos, the pathos to do that and be a witness for you. Lord, we just want to be one of your sheep. And send us to people who need to hear your voice, that we may be one. Keep us, protect us, and save us is our prayer. In Jesus' name and for his sake, amen. Amen. God bless you as you learn to speak sheep.